They often say that being sensitive is a flaw, that reacting deeply means something is off, that if words linger, if tone matters, if emotions surface quickly, it must mean you're fragile. From early on, many people learn this message quietly, sometimes directly, through comments meant to correct, sometimes indirectly, through jokes, sighs, or eye rolls. Don't take it so personally. You're too sensitive. It's not that serious. Over time, those words don't just land, they settle. For many people, being called too sensitive isn't a single moment. It's a pattern, a repetition that slowly shapes how they see themselves. At first, it can feel confusing, because sensitivity doesn't always feel like a problem from the inside. It often feels like awareness, like noticing when something shifts, like feeling the weight behind a sentence that others seem to brush past. But once the label appears, something changes. You begin to watch yourself more closely. You hesitate before reacting. You question whether what you feel is valid or excessive. The body often notices this before the mind does. A tightening in the chest when you're about to speak, a quick breath held back, a familiar urge to minimize what you're feeling before anyone else can. So you adjust. You soften your reactions. You explain yourself too much. You laugh things off that didn't actually feel funny. Not because you suddenly believe you're wrong, but because you've learned that your reactions make others uncomfortable. For many people, sensitivity isn't something they chose. It's how they experience the world. They register tone. They notice subtleties. They feel atmosphere, not just words. When someone's mood changes, they sense it. When a comment carries tension, they feel it in their body. When something is left unsaid, it lingers. This doesn't arrive as drama. It arrives as accumulation. Emotions don't always show up one at a time. They overlap. A comment can carry disappointment, care, and fear all at once. And when emotions arrive layered like that, the nervous system responds quickly, often before there's language for it. From the outside, this can look like overreaction, but from the inside, it often feels like information arriving all at once. Many people who are called too sensitive grow up learning to read the room, sometimes because emotions around them were unpredictable, sometimes because they were expected to be understanding, sometimes because they learned that noticing early kept things from escalating. So awareness became a form of coping, not conscious, not strategic, just necessary. Over time, that awareness becomes automatic. You don't decide to feel deeply, you simply do. But in environments that value composure over attunement, this way of being is often misunderstood. Sensitivity is framed as weakness, as immaturity, as something that needs to be corrected. And slowly, the message internalizes. Many people begin to wonder if they're broken, if they missed some lesson about emotional control, if everyone else learned how to stay unaffected and they didn't. So they work harder to contain themselves. They replay conversations. They analyze their reactions. They ask themselves if they're making a big deal out of nothing. This inner questioning can be exhausting because it doesn't come from clarity. It comes from doubt. For many, the most painful part isn't feeling deeply. It's being told again and again that what they feel is too much. There is often grief here. Grief for the version of themselves that reacted freely before they learned to self-edit. Grief for moments when their emotions were met with curiosity instead of correction. Grief for not being believed in their own experience. This grief is quiet. It doesn't always have words. It shows up as hesitation, as withdrawal, as the instinct to stay small. Sometimes people stop sharing altogether, not because they don't have feelings, but because explaining them feels like work, like something that needs justification.
Others keep sharing, but with a layer of apology. I know I'm probably being sensitive, but I might be overreacting, but language becomes a way to protect themselves from
Sensitivity
dismissal
has
before it
always
happens.
existed alongside care. They notice how others feel. They respond thoughtfully. They adjust without being asked. This responsiveness often becomes invisible, taken for granted, expected. So when they finally react to something that hurts, it's met with surprise, as if their role was to absorb, not respond. This can create confusion in relationships, because the people who benefit most from someone's sensitivity are often the least comfortable with its emotional expression. And yet, the sensitivity itself doesn't disappear. It simply turns inward. Over time, being called too sensitive can create distance from one's own inner world. You begin to mistrust your reactions. You override your body. You second-guess your emotional signals. But those signals don't vanish. They wait. They show up as tension, as fatigue, as a sense that something is off, even when everything looks fine. Often, people only realize how much they've been carrying when they're finally in a space where they don't have to explain themselves, where reactions are met with listening instead of correction, where sensitivity isn't something to manage, but something that's simply present. If this reflection feels familiar so far, you're welcome to stay connected here. Some people choose to like or follow, simply as a quiet way of returning to these conversations when they need them, only if it feels right for you. For many, sensitivity becomes easier to understand when it's seen not as excess, but as responsiveness, as a system that registers quickly, as awareness that developed for a reason. This doesn't mean it's always comfortable. Being sensitive can be tiring. It can mean feeling more sooner. It can mean needing more space to process. But it doesn't mean something is wrong. Often, sensitivity reflects a history of paying attention, of noticing what mattered because it had consequences, of adapting to emotional environments by becoming perceptive. That adaptation may no longer be needed in the same way, but it remains part of how the body responds. And reframing that can bring relief. Not by changing who you are, but by understanding why you've been this way. Many people begin to soften toward themselves when they realize their sensitivity didn't come from fragility. It came from awareness, from care, from learning to respond to the world as it was. This realization doesn't erase the discomfort of being misunderstood, but it can loosen the shame around it. You may still feel deeply. You may still notice more than others. But the meaning of that experience can shift. Instead of seeing sensitivity as a flaw, it becomes something neutral, a way of processing, a way of being in contact with what's happening. There is often relief in that neutrality, because it removes the need to fix, to harden, to become someone else. Being called too sensitive may still sting. Old words don't disappear easily, but they don't have to define you either. Sometimes, the quiet resolution is simply this: that your reactions made sense in the context you learned them in, that feeling deeply wasn't a mistake, that you didn't imagine the weight of what you noticed. And maybe that's enough for now. If you feel comfortable, you're welcome to share a thought or feeling this brought up for you in the comments. It could be a sentence that stayed with you, or a moment when that label first appeared, or something you've never quite had language for. Sometimes, seeing these experiences reflected outside ourselves makes them feel less isolating. In the end, being sensitive isn't about being unable to handle the world. For many, it's about having been in close contact with it for a long time. And And recognizing that doesn't solve everything, but it can make the experience feel less like a personal failure and more like a part of a larger story. One that doesn't need to be corrected, just understood.